It's been a year since the lights went out, and we're still trying to understand who flipped the switch. Today on Locked On A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Booney, one name, all passion, and I've been riding with this squad for 4 decades, and let me tell you, the A's aren't just some scrappy underdog anymore. We are the storm rolling in. From Ricky to the Bash Brothers, from the Big Three to the Vegas Blueprint, this franchise has always found a way to flip the script, and right now, these kids are turning MLB upside down, and the rest of the league cannot stand it. Stick around. We're building a desert dynasty, and you don't want to be late to the party. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So smash that subscribe button right now and join the ride. And if you are in Nevada, catch Locked On A's Monday through Friday at 12:30 on Silver State Sports and Entertainment, Digital Channel 5.2, and Cox Channel 77. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. It's been a little over a year since the last game in Oakland, and today we take a stroll down memory lane as we dive into the mess behind the headlines. The failed promises of Howard Terminal, the $352 million infrastructure standoff, and the uneasy dance between John Fisher's penny-pinching ownership and a city that's long treated the A's like a third-wheel roommate. We revisit how Rob Manfred's support turned into frustration and how former Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao's last-ditch proposals unraveled, and why this move feels less like relocation and more like an autopsy. This was not just a business decision, it was a betrayal wrapped in bureaucracy. The A's were once the heart of the East Bay. Now, they are a franchise caught between past glory and permanent exile. This was the end of Oakland baseball as we knew it, the moment it all fell apart. Let's dive into it. Let's face it, the Oakland A's saga is the kind of drama that makes you wonder if someone's secretly filming a reality show called Ballparks and Bad Decisions. It's got everything: dysfunction, heartbreak, shady deals, and just enough incompetence to keep you yelling at your TV. If you thought the Raiders and Warriors leaving town was messy, the A's said, "Hold my beer." For anyone still clinging to the narrative that Major League Commissioner Rob Manfred didn't support keeping the A's in Oakland, it's time for a reality check. The evidence is clear. Manfred, despite his flaws, repeatedly and publicly backed the idea of the A's remaining in the Bay Area. Yet somehow, a different story has taken hold. One that paints him as a indifferent or even hostile cause of Oakland baseball. Hey, I bought into it. Manfred's commitment to Oakland was loud and clear. He was never ambiguous about his stance. And in his own words, quote unquote, "I am committed to Oakland as a major league site. If we were to leave Oakland, I think 10 years from now, we would more likely than not be looking backwards saying we made a mistake." That's not a man indifferent to the fate of the franchise. That's a commissioner publicly acknowledging not just Oakland's potential, but the likelihood that leaving would be a mistake. And then there's this: Oakland is more likely than not to be a better market 5 years from now than it's today. This wasn't just empty talk. Manfred actively pushed A's ownership Lou Wolf and John Fisher to exhaust every possible option in Oakland before considering a move. His stance wasn't just about lip service. It was a direct challenge to ownership to find a way to make things work. The idea that Manfred was part of the A's relocation is not supported. Manfred's policy has always been to keep teams in their existing market whenever possible. He said as much, quote unquote, "It remains my strong preference because I think it's policy that has served baseball really well over time to stay in the markets where we are located. We are going to exhaust every possibility to get stadiums done in Tampa Bay and in Oakland." That's about as clear as a mission statement as it gets. But let's not forget the role of local government. When Mayor Libby Schaaf prioritized baseball, Manfred acknowledged and appreciated it. Quote unquote, "The mayor in Oakland has made it clear to me that baseball is her first priority. She would like to keep both teams, but baseball is her first priority." And I think that's a good spot for baseball to be in. Translation: Manfred saw an opportunity to keep the A's in Oakland and knew the city was on board. The reality is, Commissioner Manfred didn't fail Oakland. And if you're looking for a real villain in this story, don't point to the commissioner's office. The A's slow motion exit from Oakland wasn't the result of Manfred turning his back on the city. Could Manfred have done more? Maybe. But to claim he never supported keeping the A's in Oakland is a rewrite of history that doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The truth is in the receipts, and the receipts say Rob Manfred fought for Oakland. Now, things did change in 2021, and by July 2021, things were heating up. The A's proposed a term sheet for Howard Terminal. Up next. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they are worth, whether it's 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you have put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categories of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify that you are not saving as much as you thought. For me, it was too much money on DoorDash, A's Gear, and streaming services I wasn't even using. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. By July 2021, things were heating up. The A's proposed a term sheet for Howard Terminal that included covering $450 million in construction costs. The A's wanted future taxes to pay for the affordable housing that was part of the project. Quote unquote, "It's a shocking element I have difficulty swallowing," one council member said when the request came in. The city council countered with their own term sheet, which basically said, get this. Now, I'm paraphrasing here. Fine, we'll handle off-site infrastructure ourselves. But here's the kicker. That off-site infrastructure has a $352 million price tag. And if the city can't figure out how to pay for it, surprise, the bill goes back to the A's. It's like a game of financial hot potato, only everyone involved is terrible at catching. By September 2021, things had devolved into a semantic slap over whether Alameda County was making a declaration of intent or a declaration of willingness. Honestly, who knew local government could be so maddening? Supervisor Wilma Chan summed it up best by essentially saying, yeah, we voted for this, but we can totally back out later if we feel like it. And let's not forget about the 7.5 hour marathon session where everyone debated this. What they were reviewing and debating was non binding. This was supposed to be the easy votes, the rubber stamps. If this is how they handle the warm up act, I shudder to think what will happen when they get to the big stuff like certifying the environmental impact report or finalizing the actual development deal. At this point, Howard Terminal is less a ballpark project and more a tragic comedy of bureaucracy, greed, and toxic dirt. Let's start with the big question. Did the A's propose Howard Terminal because they knew it would be an absolute hellscape? I mean, if you're trying to build a ballpark in Oakland, you might as well propose putting it on top of a live volcano for all the red tape you'll face. But hey, let's give owner John Fisher the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he really thought Howard Terminal, a waterfront site with stunning views, logistical nightmares, and enough opposition to fill the Coliseum's empty seats, was the key to transforming Oakland. Transforming into what, though? A construction site with a 6-lane bridge to nowhere? Speaking of that bridge, the A's quietly backed an environmental impact report alternative that includes this monstrosity of a bridge, but didn't bother to tell anyone until 2 weeks before certification. Why? Probably because they didn't want to commit to pay for it. Hey, City of Oakland, we've got a great idea. You foot the bill for this bridge, and we'll just sit here and wait for our ballpark to magically appear. Unsurprisingly, the city is now scrambling for federal and state grants like a broke college kid searching for loose change in their couch cushions. This whole thing was absolutely insane. Let's not forget who we're dealing with here. John Fisher and his wallet. This guy has a spending cap of someone who insists on splitting the check at dinner down to the last penny. It gets better, and here's the kicker. Howard Terminal is Oakland's only shot at keeping the A's. The Coliseum has been declared not viable. Yet, somehow, despite having years to figure this out, the city spent so much time suing the Raiders and the NFL and losing that by the time they remembered they still had one team left, it was too late to make any real progress. And let's not pretend Oakland's political leadership has been a beacon of competence here. Up next. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You will always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. Priority fees are included. Know your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. I love zone deals as well. Pick the section. Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I have bought tickets. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB game night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB game night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Outgoing Mayor Libby Schaaf may have been all in on Howard Terminal, but her second term left many residents feeling ignored. Meanwhile, the rest of the city council seem more interested in avoiding blame than actually solving problems. Public funding for sports projects is a third rail in Oakland politics. So instead of making bold moves, everyone just kicks the can down the road and prays they're not in office when everything falls apart. Oh, and don't get me started on the off-site infrastructure costs. Depending on who you ask, they were anywhere from 200 million to 1 billion. That's right, billion with a B. And no one seems to have a clue what the real number is because these discussions are happening behind closed doors instead of in public where they belong. But hey, let's not forget about the fans, the poor souls who stuck with the team through thick and mostly thin. Some of them are still dreaming big, imagining a future where Oakland has 5 pro teams: the A's, the Raiders, the new WNBA team. What are they called? The Valkyries, the Roots, the Oakland Soul. Bless their hearts, man. Meanwhile, reality is over here reminding us that Oakland has spent the last decade running teams out of town faster than you can say relocation fee. Here's the brutal truth. Major leagues don't wait around forever. The NFL didn't wait for the Raiders. Neither did the NBA wait for the Warriors. MLB wasn't any different. And can we talk about John Fisher here for a second? I'm sure anyone watching from Oakland would love that. He doesn't get a pass here whatsoever. Fisher's flirtation with Sin City is like that friend who keeps threatening to move to Bali every time they have a bad day at work. We get it. The grass looks greener over there. But let's not pretend this is about anything other than money. The A's are dangling Howard Terminal like a carrot in front of Oakland while packing their bags for the desert at the same time. It's not a love triangle. It's a hostage negotiation. And then there's Oakland itself, a city that somehow manages to be both the hero and the villain in this tragic comedy. On one hand, you've got city officials terrified of being blamed for losing the last major pro team in town. On the other hand, they are about as decisive as a toddler picking an ice cream flavor. Public funding? Infrastructure costs? Let's just throw out random numbers and hope no one notices. And let's not forget about the voters. According to polls, Howard Terminal ranked about as high on Oakland's priority list as remembering to buy stamps. Out of 9 issues, it came in 8th. 8th. Right above probably nothing. Turns out people care more about things like housing and public safety than they do about a $12 billion mega development that may or may not ever happen. Shocking, I know. So where does that leave us? Where we've always been, stuck in limbo, with a city too scared to commit, a team owner too cheap to invest, and a fan base caught in the crossfire. If this is truly, as Dave Cavill put it, Howard Terminal or bust, then bust is looking more likely by the day. How about the lease negotiation? Remember the lease negotiation before the A's announced they were going to Sacramento? First off, let's talk rent. The A's paid a laughable $1.25 million annually to squat at the Coliseum, which doesn't even include operating costs that run upward of $15 million a year. Mayor Tao reportedly offered a short-term lease extension for 2025 to 2027, but with a twist. Higher rent, and get this, the A's giving up their team name to Oakland. Yes, she's asking John Fisher to hand over the Athletics. That's a bold move, Tao. I mean, Tao thought she had pocket aces when in fact she had 2-7 offsuit. Meanwhile, MLB has swooped in to handle lease negotiations because apparently the A's have outsourced even their basic responsibilities. Rob Manfred is now Oakland's least favorite house guest, stomping around the Coliseum like he owns the place. He's clearly enjoying his power trip, reminding Oakland politicians that he holds all the cards. To her credit, though, Mayor Cheng Tao tried. She tried real hard. She was out there making media rounds like a politician, running for re-election, pitching Oakland as deserving of either an MLB expansion team or at the least the rights to the Athletics brand. I mean, when did she have all the time to rob the city blind? But let's be real. At that time, MLB wasn't exactly itching to throw Oakland a bone. While it was inspirational, you did not do yourselves any favors with your little reverse boycott and the sell the team campaign. Listen, just saying. It was an absolute wild ride. And just going through it all, you have a hard time grasping it or understanding that this all really did take place. But let's cut through all the nonsense. The idea that the Oakland A's earnestly tried to stay in Oakland is a myth. And the claim that the city did everything in its power to retain them is equally suspect. The truth is messier, less flattering, and far more damning for both sides. Let's not mince words here. The Oakland A's have always been the third wheel in the East Bay sports scene, a perpetual afterthought in a love triangle that included the Raiders and Warriors. And while the A's have been the last to leave the Coliseum complex, their long tenure is less a badge of honor and more a grim reminder of how little they have been prioritized. It started when the A's arrived in Oakland in 1968, a few years after the Raiders had already set up shop at the Coliseum complex. By the time the A's joined the party, the Raiders had already established themselves as the alpha tenant. The Warriors would later move into the same complex, creating a crowded house where the A's were treated like the distant cousin no one really wanted to invite to Thanksgiving dinner. When it came to upgrades or improvements, the A's were always left holding the short straw. The Raiders were wooed back to Oakland in 1995 after a stint in LA, and let's just say it wasn't a cheap date. East Bay leaders bent over backwards, throwing millions of dollars into the stadium renovations to lure them home. And who paid the price? Yeah, the A's did. The renovations turned their shared stadium into Frankenstein, complete with Mount Davis, a towering eyesore of luxury suites that ruined sightlines for baseball games. It was like redecorating your living room for a roommate who doesn't even pay rent while making your own life miserable. If you're looking for examples of Oakland fighting tooth and nail to keep the A's, you'll be searching for a while. Sure, there were efforts, if you call them that, to keep the A's within city limits. But let's be honest, they were mostly symbolic gestures, half-hearted at best. The city council might as well have sent a Hallmark card that read, "We'd love for you to stay, but we're not going to try too hard." Take the Howard Terminal project, for instance. The A's pitched a bold vision for a waterfront ballpark that promised to revitalize downtown Oakland. But when push came to shove, the city council couldn't even vote on the A's actual proposal. Instead, they voted on their own version of the plan, a plan that was dead on arrival. It was like inviting someone to dinner and then serving them a meal they didn't order. And let's not forget about the infamous parking revenue spat with the Coliseum's governing body. The A's accused them of distorting parking revenue. And things got so ugly that it spilled into lease negotiations. When Oakland played hardball, then MLB Commissioner Bud Selig stepped in with his favorite move, the relocation threat card. The city of Oakland blinked first, but the damage was done. The relationship between the city and the team was as fractured as ever. The irony here is that the A's stuck around longer than both the Raiders and Warriors, not because of some unshakable bond with Oakland, but because they didn't have anywhere else to go. If not for territorial rights held by the San Francisco Giants, the A's would have likely bolted for San Jose years ago. Fremont, Alameda County, those flirtations never amounted to much either. So here we are, looking at a team that stayed not out of love or loyalty, but out of necessity. It's like being the last guest at a party because you don't have a cab fare to get home. Not exactly a romantic notion. The truth is harsh, but undeniable. The A's were never Oakland's top priority. They were always playing second or third fiddle to flashier teams with bigger followings or more immediate political clout. And now, they are gone, like their predecessors. For me, it feels less like heartbreak and more like a long overdue breakup. The A's didn't want to stay, and Oakland didn't do everything it could to keep them. Both statements are true. The A's checked out the moment Vegas became viable, and Oakland's leadership never crafted a compelling enough case to make staying worthwhile. So let's stop pretending this was some great love story gone wrong. The A's tenure in Oakland was marked by neglect, half measures, and missed opportunities on both sides. If anything, their departure should serve as a cautionary tale about what happens when you treat someone or something as an afterthought for decades. Oakland may have lost its last professional sports team, but let's be real. They lost the A's long before the moving trucks ever showed up.